If you love movies, you're in the right place, and that place is here at the Chronicle, the official fun podcast for the people's movies. Welcome back, and welcome to episode 59 of the podcast. As ever, I'm your host, I'm Paul. I am also the editor of the people's movies. Thank you very much for joining me. And for episode 59, we have two co-hosts. Welcome back to Sean. Hi, Sean.
Hi, Paul.
And Rosie. Hi, Rosie. Welcome to your first podcast. So, how are you
Thank
guys?
you.
That's great.
Good.
So what we're going to do for this episode is we're going to talk about the latest film from Steven Spielberg, Disclosure Day, and we may talk about a few other films right after that. So that's episode 59. And for this episode, episode 59 of the Chronicle, we are reviewing Disclosure Day, Steven Spielberg's new film. So, Sean, would you like to tell us a lot about what it's about and if you liked it or didn't like it?
Yeah, so this is, I believe, Steven Spielberg's 37th feature film, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, he is obviously, I hardly need to say that he's a living legend and has reshaped cinema in his own image across a host of different genres, including the extraterrestrial alien invasion movie. I mean, this goes right the way back to Close Encounters in 1977, which is obviously seen as like one of the definitive first contact movies. And I think what Disclosure Day is basically I would describe it as the spiritual sequel to Close Encounters. It revisits a lot of the same themes, albeit it explores those themes in the modern world in a much more disillusioned, cynical modern world compared to 1977 when Close Encounters came out. But like the earlier film, it takes place in the American heartland. It rotates around an ensemble of different characters, each grappling with the potential of information fallouts and personal revelations. So primarily, you have Emily Blunt as the weather forecaster who all of a sudden finds herself gifted with the seeming extraterrestrial ability of telepathy and speaking in an alien language and speaking in other human languages. And then you have Josh O'Connor as the whistleblower, who's basically gone on the run from his own company with basically a plot MacGuffin that will threaten to blow the whole alien conspiracy angle wide open. And Colin Firth is the incongruously British bad guy who is kind of coming after him. When I think of like sinister government officials at the head of an American organization, I don't think of Colin Firth, although I do love Colin Firth. And then Colman Domingo is basically Josh O'Connor's man on the inside, who for most of the movie appears to be inside a giant warehouse building a model home, but I
Yep.
can't go further than that. So I'll
Exactly.
draw a line there. Yeah, I'll draw a line at that because I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it. But yeah, it's basically, as I said, it is the spiritual sequel to Close Encounters, and it's scripted by David Koepp. Although the story originated with Spielberg, Koepp is credited with the final script, and it does sort of glancingly touch on some interesting ideas. So the idea of if you could expose several decades of an alien conspiracy on Earth in this day and age, what would it do to people? Would it further send people into paranoia? What would it do to the concept of organized religion? The idea of like if you have like a people believing in a monotheistic religion and then all of a sudden you expose to the fact that we're not alone in the universe, what would that do to people's psychology? Would it send them into a panic? That's just one strand of the movie that's kind of again sort of thrown out there. I think for me there are a lot of ideas that are kind of glancingly touched on but not in any great depth. It's one of those things where, and I think although I did broadly enjoy it, I wouldn't call it one of my favorite Spielberg movies. I mean, I'd say it's probably a mid-tier Spielberg movie. I kind of watched it thinking a lot of it feels quite behind the times. I mean, the whole idea of the world we live in now is so much scarier than anything that an alien conspiracy could suggest. I mean, we're living in a much more dangerous world now anyway. So I just think the threat that this film poses, it does feel about 30 or 40 years behind the times. It feels very close encounters. It also feels very post X-Files. Like the X-Files did all this stuff in its original run back in the 1990s before it eventually ran out of steam. And I'm kind of like, I'm not quite sure. There are no revelations in this. Like there's a lot of people running around like talking urgently about people need to know the truth, but they're talking in the kind of cliches that we've seen in films for about the last 40 or 50 years. I don't think it's not adding anything to the discourse around movies in this sense, despite the fact that it does gesture to the possibility of exposing a conspiracy in the modern world. There's a random action sequence involving a car being pushed onto a train track, which again seems to be that Steven Spielberg is one of the great action directors. So let's just throw an action sequence in there just for the sake of it, because the audience might be getting a bit bored, which I thought was strange. There's lots of what do they call it? Lens flares. There's lots
Yeah.
of lens flares and backlighting from Janusz Kaminski, who's a long-standing DP with Spielberg. There's a surprisingly understated score from John Williams, which is more functional, I think, in its approach. It doesn't really have many memorable themes in it, but I think that is commendable. I think the relative subtlety of the score is commendable. I think the best thing about it is Emily Blunt. She's
Yeah.
amazing. Do you think that as well? Like, it's just she's brilliant, isn't she?
Cheers. Rosie, you want to uh, uh, say you think? Did you think Emily Blunt was one of the best things about the film?
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if she didn't get an Oscar nomination for this. Like, I I've been saying she's a brilliant actress, but I've never seen her take on a film of that kind of like capacity before. It's often Devil Wears Prada, The Fall Guy. Nothing that's really shown off her acting abilities before, and I think this could really be a turning point for her career in the future as well, and potentially what she might be taking on. I know she took on the Smashing Machine, and like they hope that would do better than it did, but
Yeah.
I do think from now on this might be a big turning point for her. And everywhere I'm seeing, even if people hated the film, they've all said that her performance was amazing. So I agree. She was one of the best parts, and I think some performances lacked a little compared to hers.
Yeah, I think it's a really complex role, and she's got to basically play several facets. She's got to be, the human being who's imbued with extraterrestrial abilities, and the human being imbued with extraterrestrial abilities who basically becomes hailed as something more than that. She's got to harbour all of these really complicated character facets in one character. And I think she's more than up to the challenge. It's funny because I've spoken to a few people who thought that she was actually wasted in Oppenheimer, although I thought she had some good scenes in Oppenheimer, but she probably wasn't in it all that much. And I think maybe this makes amends for that. This is a much meatier role for her.
Mm.
And yeah, I thought she was terrific in this.
I think
Yeah.
there's that
Oh,
scene.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, go
I
ahead,
think
Rosie.
there's that scene when just after the action scene you mentioned at the train when they end up in the carriage and she's kind of like freaking out, and it's the mention of like the childhood trauma and all the different aspects of everything, like the weight that that person has taken on in 24 hours. And I thought she did it so well. I was almost crying at one point. I just thought like her performance out, like everyone was brilliant, but hers really stood out.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, Emma Blunt is the best thing about it. No, she's fantastic as Margaret. At times she was very neurotic, but the part asked for that, and she does deliver some emotion and light art humor, which these sort of films do need at times, And what I also liked was is how the film started, It was starting like something like, like a film noir type thing. You know what that opening scene remind me, folks? It opens. I'm not spoiling any here. Apologies if there's any spoilers in here. Sometimes spoilers do come out. We don't do it deliberately. Just sometimes the sort of part, the type of the film we're reviewing may need us to say a few things. I thought the opening part, and it might be one of going back to Minority Report with Tom Cruise's John Addleton and Adderton when he starts to click that he doesn't know what's going on. Then he clicks, wait a minute, I might be going up for murder here. And then when his teammates come in, You see Daniel as Josh O'Connor's role. Uh, he's at a wrestling match and he's you can see he's about to hand something over, but exchange something, but you don't actually know at that point exactly what it is he's doing, you know. And then
But you know
eventually,
it's important, don't you? You
yeah,
know, you
yeah,
straight away, you know
Mm.
how significant it is, even if you don't know. It's
yeah,
great.
yeah, because a lot of films will go for a slow build up. That film just goes right into it.
Mm.
And you gradually, as the film progresses, you get to learn who Daniel is. There was another person with him, played by Evie Hewson. She plays Jane. Uh, you start to learn what is it that's going on here, because this is when we also first meet Colin Firth's character, Noah Scanlon, who's like the head of this shady uh, private company, works for governments and shady agencies in the world. Wardex, I think it was called Wardex.
Yeah.
Wardex. Yeah,
Mm.
and you start to learn he had something, because there's at one point he does something, and Noah's telling him be careful how you handle it. But as the film progresses, you start to see what that thing or things in action, you know. So I like that sort of scene, you know. I mean, Steven Spielberg, he helped shape cinema and what we expect in cinema. He's part of the movie brats, which include, I think it was Scorsese, Lucas, and Coppola. They were the sort of first generation that went to film school instead of getting thrown in at the deep end and learn from the masters that made films in the older
Mm.
days. You know, and they even though they were considered the 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 first people of American independent films. They were the people who created the first modern blockbusters. How blockbusters are, how they're made, you know. So I mean, this Disclosure Day is perfect for any of the directors. Do you know what? I'm looking and thinking of that set of directors. Is it only I would only say Scorsese's the only one that's never really sort of made a big sort of blockbuster in the sense, you know, like Disclosure Day. Spielberg's and Lucas are always, to me, are always the ones that sort of done on like your Star Wars, your Indiana Jones, your
Mm.
E.T.'s, your Jaws, you know.
Jaws, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I I'm with you in as much as I thought the start of Disclosure Day was really, really good because it's visual storytelling. It's
yeah,
like I love the comparison with Minority Report because Minority Report throws a huge amount of complicated information at you in 10 minutes with not very much exposition. It's all done with visual cues, and the start of this film is like that as well.
yeah,
And I thought this is great. Like we're thrown halfway in through the action, we kind of know where we are, even if we don't have the incidental details, which is why I thought it was a shame that as Disclosure Day went on, it does fall more and more into silliness and kind of like a very earnest kind of silly kind of spirituality with lots of like CGI animals wandering around. There is a reason for that.
yeah,
And like that just snapped me out of the drama faster than anything. I'm like, okay, this has kind of lost me now. It started off really well as this relatively grounded, like pre-Minority Report, post-Minority Report conspiracy thriller, which was moderately engaging. And now I'm just like, okay, I think that's more a fault of the script. I mean, I mean, the comparison to Minority Report again, the lighting, the way this film is lit, I think is a lot like Minority Report, and a lot of oversaturated like whites and blues and greys. But yeah, it's like once the animals turned up, I was like, oh, and there we go.
yeah.
I can feel my engagement just going down bit by bit now.
It's interesting that you say that because I actually felt like completely gripped the whole way through. I thought there's not a certain moment where I felt like I could get up and leave, like go to the toilet. It's a long film, like I felt its length, don't get me wrong. Um, but I also felt like I was holding my breath for the whole thing. I really really enjoyed that film, and it did feel a bit like watching a classic. I watched it with my mum, and I said to her after, like that felt like something that could have been made like years ago. I think the only thing that made it feel like modern to me was the mentions of AI, like randomly every now and then.
Yeah, yeah. Also, the kind of, I mean, I've had a few discussions with people since I've watched it. Like the focus on like network TV is like the catalyst for everything. I mean, I know Spielberg is from a very particular generation when TV
Mm,
would have been this quite exciting, exotic thing. And I just kind of thought, really, like relying on TV and like network TV and news TV to drive the plot forward. I mean, like in the age we're in now, I would have thought there'd have been a much more efficient way of kind of, like online technology of like advancing the plot forward. I can only assume that that's Spielberg's concession to his own generation, the fact that his generation grew up, with network TV being like the ballast of everything, like the bulwark of
Mm.
everything. I just thought that seemed, the more I think about it, the more I think that seems weirdly out of date, and I'm not quite sure where that emphasis
Yeah.
came from. It's strange, isn't it? But yeah.
It is, yeah, it is outdated. I do think it's interesting because towards the end, it did show how quickly, even like though it just aired on a little local TV network, that it did spread super quickly through social media. Um, but I think it would have made things feel way too modern if it was something that was based more on a social. Like, I just think that would have took me way more out of it. But I guess that is again the feeling that it is a classic. It felt like a classic rather than something that's super modern. And sometimes I appreciate that. I think things too often call on today's era, and it's nice to see something that does things a little bit differently.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, so it feels more timeless, yeah, by
Mm,
invoking like the power of TV. Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, yeah. So maybe Spielberg aimed for us to come back to this in like sort of maybe 20, 30 years time without sort of pegging it to like modern day like social media technology. Yeah, I didn't think about that actually. Yeah, that's a good point. I think maybe in that case he succeeded. Well, I
mm.
mean, maybe in 20 years' time we'll find out.
Yeah,
But
see what kids think.
yeah, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. No, with the sort of social media, because you see a lot of them watching on the sort of mobile phones. It's just shows you how times are changing and how people get their information from. As well, you're right about the generations. I think it's his generation uh, telling the current younger generation, don't believe in yourself and don't fear what you know. And his generation may have held other generations back, like my own generation, held back. And this is your time to sort of shine. Don't fear the power of what that type of thing. And you know, just don't fear it, because as you said about the CGI and that, yeah. Yeah, technology's changed. Back when they made even Minority Report, technology was completely different. Mobile phones were just virtually for texting and phoning people. Nowadays, you can do everything on your phone. You
Mm,
mean, just look at the prices of the phone, some of them. I mean, I remember buying back. I mean, I went to Salford University in 2000, Manchester, and I remember, oh great, I've got a phone at £50. That £50 phone now is probably about £300-400,
Yeah.
for what you're getting
yeah,
for it, I mean, that's how it's sort of shown his fear, how their generation sort of feels how things are changing so fast. Just believe in yourself. You have the power. And I also think it might be there's little reminders because in the background you hear about the sort of struggles. You hear there's a war going on.
That was
yeah,
weird. That was just kind of there in the
Yeah,
background. Like you see it at the very
mm,
beginning, and then I was like that. I mean, apparently David Kett went through many, many different iterations of the script. I can only assume that was more prominent in an earlier draft, and then maybe they just kind of pushed it back and made it more of like a localized American story with global implications.
yeah,
Maybe. Oh, that was strange. But
yeah.
yeah,
It would have been way too much if they did like focus on a war. That would have been an extra thing. But I think they should have potentially just taken that out
mm,
in general because it held no relevance. I mean, it's realistic that there could be another war in the future, yeah, but it had no relevance to the
yeah,
actual story at all.
because it invokes like the Emily Blunt after she's gifted with, well, she unlocks these abilities at the beginning. She talks to the Korean guy in the
Mm,
news station. She talks Korean, which is actually a really funny scene. Like there are actually quite a lot of funny scenes in the movie, and you kind of think, okay, but then the whole idea of Korea versus the world is meant to be like the backdrop of this thing, and then it just doesn't. It just doesn't go anywhere. It's kind of like for the most part, the focus just shrinks like an aperture down to about three or four characters. So I did think the script was muddled in that sense. Like, what kind of story do you want to tell here? Do you want to tell like a big globalized story or an intimate story, or do you want to try and like bring the two things together? I mean, maybe they tried to do that, and maybe for me, it didn't work necessarily all that well. Although one of the quibble I had was it sidelines Wyatt Russell far too early. He plays Emily Blunt's boyfriend, and I thought he was really appealing. I thought he was a really his banter with Emily Blunt as she gains all these seeming extraterrestrial abilities, and he's completely baffled by it. I thought, okay, great, we're going to have like an odd couple, like road trip thing going on here. And then he's just sidelined early in the movie, and it's kind of like, and I think after that, it got a bit more like doer and like self-serious for me. But maybe that's just me, you know.
Yeah,
See,
I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of his character. I mean, like he moved the story forward, and there was a bit of comic relief with him at the beginning, but he was starting to irritate me when he kind of got sidelined. I was like, yeah, thank you. Like, but
Yeah. Also, there's that scene when this isn't really a spoiler. They're fairly early on, maybe 34 minutes in. They go to a garage. They stop at a gas station,
Mm,
and there are loads of people like running around like in a kind of
yes,
disarray. And I was like, what? I was like, what's going on there? Like, did I miss something? Like, I wondered if the bit about Emily Blunt speaking the alien language had leaked like prematurely, and people had seen it, and they were like panicking. I thought, well, no, that I didn't see that happen. So,
mm. And
you
they were
know,
both buying stuff. It was almost like it's potentially related to that World War Three aspect that never actually
yeah,
got touched on.
yeah,
I did wonder that because I didn't know if it had anything to do with the random chase that was going on with Josh O'Connor's character before, but it felt like it. I did think at that time I was like, that's a little bit confusing. Like, why is everyone panic buying random stuff running around in the background? And
yeah,
maybe there was scenes that they shot that they took out that went more into it as well. If it was part of it.
yeah. You see
yeah,
someone like carrying off toilet roll in the background, like it was during like lockdowns.
COVID, yeah.
yeah. That's a bit where I heard the war thing that was on playing on the television as they were in the garage, and that sort of thing, and it sort of thinks sort of I'm not wanting to be political here or anything here, but I'll try and be as diplomatic as I can. It's sort of because what that sort of reminded me, I think it was his dig on Donald Trump as well. And if you ever watch anything, say on YouTube or any of the social medias, there is a certain part of society who believe in certain things. Things are done for a
Mm,
reason, you know. A lot of people think this film is a way of being a disclosure date in real life to say, are we alone in this world, you know? And also, as you mentioned about CGI and AI, that's all changed so much since the early days to a point when it's gone at a terrifying speed. Sometimes I think they're 90, I would say they're about 90% where they can show you something and go, my God, was that CGI? Was that AI? You know, I think it's the way the AI talks is where it's letting them down at the moment. And some of these people might believe it's part of a master plan, you know, tinfoil hat wearers, we'll call them, who believe it's all part of to take us into we're into the pages of a Orwell novel, 1984, no, a totalitarian police state. Some people, depending on your political views, might believe that we're already there. You know, that's what I think he had a little dig at as well. You know, and that's how he's trying to say to people, the younger generation, don't be scared of what you believe in. You know, please speak out. You know, type thing. So, should we sort of wind this up? Everyone to give their final thoughts and maybe a little rating. So, who would like to go first?
yeah, I mean, I maybe like prematurely gave it 5 out of 5. I just think when I was watching it, like bear in mind I'm a lot younger, so I haven't seen a lot of like the Spielberg films that other people may have seen. Like Close Encounters, I haven't seen. I have seen E.T., but I really like when I was watching it. I felt like I hadn't felt like that watching something in the cinema for a very long time. Like it really felt like something special to me. And I felt like it was a film that had a lot to say. Like when you mentioned the political aspects, I think it goes way beyond aliens, in my opinion. I think they're somewhat a metaphor for other things that go on in the world at the moment. Um, I thought the religious like perspective was really interesting as well. And it was never disrespectful. I think everything was done very tastefully. But yeah, it was something that where I was like captured from start to finish. I really felt like at the end I wanted to just sit there for a minute and sit with it because I think it was just in my eyes a really beautiful film. I can see why people don't like it so much, and I've seen very divided reviews, like people giving it 4 stars, people giving it 2 stars, and I understand like everyone's perspective, but I think like when people are saying it's a bad film, I feel like we can't say it's an ultimately bad film because I do think it was a really well done one. I think there are some potential issues with scripts in some parts and some confusing muddles in some elements, but it was a film that I really enjoyed, and the moment I put it at the top of my rankings for this year.
So what rating would you give it, Rosie?
I gave it 5.
Still sticking with a 5?
Yeah, for now. For now, I only saw it yesterday, so
Sean?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm right in the middle. Are we allowed to do half stars? Are
Yes.
we okay with that? Is that
Yes.
all right? I always think I'd check that. Yeah, so three and a half out of five. So I'd go right down the middle. I think that we should cherish Steven Spielberg while he makes films because he is an institution unto himself. And he doesn't make films as much as he used to. So even with a new project like this, which I'd consider to be fairly flawed, I do agree with you, Rosie. There is just enough in it to justify a trip to the cinema to enjoy the spectacle of it and the acting. I think the acting is fabulous. Again, I wasn't convinced by. I love Colin Firth, but I wasn't convinced by him as the very posh head of this top secret American organization. I thought anytime you need, why didn't they get an American actor in to do that? I mean, it just would have seemed screamingly obvious to me. But that was like a relatively minor thing. I just think in the end the so-called revelations that it presents, again, I don't want to like go into too many details about this, they didn't feel like revelations to me. It just felt like, oh, okay, and that's it, is it? I feel like we've spent a long time herring around over like more than 2 hours. But it's interesting what you said, Rosie, about the aliens being like a metaphor. I think that I do agree with you. I think for me that's what they were driving at. They were driving at the aliens to be a metaphor for any number of other things. But I think maybe
mm,
the film the script was just, it was scripted into oblivion basically, because apparently the script went through so many different iterations that I think maybe any sort of slightly pungent or difficult ideas that the film might have had in its earlier iteration maybe got sanded down and like blunted and maybe are overly commercialized for a big audience. So I think there was probably like a darker, edgier film in here that actually grappled with its ideas and probably presented alien visitation in a slightly more radical light. If you think of things like Arrival, which
mm.
I would put that as a much more interesting story about alien visitation because it kind of puts you in the perspective of what it would be like to be in that situation. I don't think this film does, but I would say, just to sum up, go and see this film for Emily Blunt. Go and see it to champion Spielberg's heritage and for Emily Blunt because I think she's fantastic. Really, really great.
So I'm between 3.5 and 4, but I think I'll go for the 4. I enjoyed the fact that I'm back at the cinema watching a Steven Spielberg movie. I mean, his last film I would consider really as an independent movie, The Fablemans, which I really enjoyed because
Mm.
that showed his emotional side, his sort of family side, and how Steven Spielberg became this great storyteller that he is as well. Yeah, I liked same again, the aliens, is it aliens? What if aliens do exist and you were a very religious person? How would your faith see that? Who's really, if there is life in out there, life in Mars, as the song goes, would they be watching us or we be watching them, and what would happen? I think it's more like empathy over sort of fear, just sort of understanding obviously the characters and that, and the sort of huge fear and the control of the secrets. And obviously the power connection, obviously your Emily Blunt and Josh O'Connor, who were both fantastic. Josh O'Connor was very, very grounded in his sort of part. And Colin Firth, I think that was Colin Firth's James Bond villain. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
in James Bond it would have made sense, but not
yeah.
here.
No,
It's
exactly,
like-
exactly. Maybe they needed some fur nipple or an eye or something like that, to be and a cat, to stroke,
Yeah,
I mean, I think it's obviously they're talking about unity now, which the world is divided. Just to sort of get everything together, you know. And yeah, the deer thing that got me as well. The sort of deers, leave them all behind. Was it let them all behind? No, the Ethan Hawke, Julie Roberts film.
Yeah.
The deers were in that. I believe they're a sign of chaos, and unfortunately, as we look at the world at the moment, be it nationally and internationally, it's a bit chaotic as well, But yeah, it's great to show an old good dog can still deliver the goods. Yeah, it isn't perfect. The final part of the film is probably let down as well. I have to admit, I came right off of 11 o'clock in the morning in evening to an 8 o'clock in the morning night shift at my work, and I went straight and watched it. And I did slightly doze off, I think, for 5 minutes, and that way I woke up and I'm like, what have I missed? What have I missed? So I'm quite glad I've got enough info here. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very solid popcorn movie. You're not kind it being perfect, just something to get your mind going. I would definitely go and see it. So you have it, folks. We have a 5, 3.5, and a 4 star for Disclosure Day. Okay, folks, for the next reviews, I should actually say here. First of all, it's going to be Sean. We're going to talk about, well, Sean's going to talk about his views on Obsession and Backrooms. And just after that, Rosie's going to just have a little chat about He-Man. So, Sean, shall we start with Obsession? What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on it? And just sort of fire away. We reviewed it in the last, myself and Nick reviewed it in the last episode of the podcast, which you'll find on YouTube and all the usual places. And both of us loved it. We sort of saw mixed, different sort of messages, and more and more I'm hearing other reviews. I'm starting to see that side of the thing, but we both agreed on what we thought. So what did you think of Obsession?
I really, really liked it. I think if the primary register of or the primary aim of a horror film is to horrify, then this certainly
Yeah,
did the job.
yeah,
I came out of it feeling like I had been kind of it was a very assaultive experience and a very, very bone
mhm,
rattling one and a very disturbing one as it's supposed to be, albeit there is black humor in it.
yeah,
It's fun. I'm just reading the box office reports as to how well it's done. I mean, bearing in mind it cost just £750,000. I mean, that's extraordinary to get a film
exactly.
this good from a budget that low. I mean, if we need to know where Hollywood is going wrong, pumping $250 million into movies that people don't want, this one, Obsession, cost 750,000,
Yeah,
which is amazing. And it's done really, really well in the UK. Apparently, over the last week, it's gone the actual box office has gone up by
wow,
22%. So, which is a really remarkable achievement for a film that's not a new release. It's been out for a couple of weeks now. So, but I think there's a reason for that. I think it's a movie that communicates with people, whether it's horror or otherwise. It's got vitality to it. It's got potency. It's got a very interesting concept. It's in a way it is a crowd pleaser, albeit a very disturbing
yeah,
one. There's something in the concept of this movie that everybody will recognize, well, everybody of of the appropriate age certification will
yes,
recognize. It's an 18 and for very, very good reason. But I think that I mean, on the one level, it's a classic like monkey's paw style, be careful what you wish for, cautionary tale. And I think everyone likes those, that they always work. There's a reason why people come back to telling these kinds of stories. They're kind of as old as humanity itself. Also, Indy Navarrette's central performance is amazing.
it is, yeah,
It's just, I mean, so unpredictable. I mean, to actually genuinely have me on the edge of my seat, wondering what was going to happen to that what was going to happen with that character in terms of her physical mannerisms and her vocal mannerisms. But then it's not just a sensationalist thing because the movie does lean into operatic tragedy. It's like her character doesn't have a say in how she's behaving. She's basically being hexed by this character, this other central character played by Michael Johnston. So I think probably what audiences are responding to is the fact that this is a tragedy in many ways about toxic masculinity and toxic expectations of relationships. I dare say that everyone can relate to that on some level. This movie just takes it to the nth degree and pushes it further than maybe we'd expect. But the central core of the film is very relatable, and I mean, the physicality of the performances, Indy Navarrete's performance in particular, is incredible. It must have been an exhausting movie to
Yeah.
make. I don't want to think how wrung out they must have been at the end.
Yeah, it's I loved it. There was a lot of things I liked about it, as in the sort of toxic masculinity thing. Yeah, you're right there. Because as obviously as you know, we meet Bear, Michael Johnson's character. He comes across as just a sort of normal shy guy, but more and more I think it was really as innocent even then. You didn't know what was going through his mind, and then at the beginning, obviously, see his cat dies, and it sort of shows you, yeah, he's got an emotion. His heart goes uh, he's when Nikki phones him and she loses her necklace.
Yeah,
So obviously that's how it comes about. The place he would have to go to get the necklace. He wants to buy her a new one. This is where he gets the one with Willow. I like the idea that the fact that the director, 26,
Curry
amazing.
Barker.
Tony
Yeah, yeah.
Barker, once again, another guy who, for the comedic side of things, like Zach Cregger, what do they call him?
Jordan Peele.
Jordan
Yeah.
Peele. It shows you horror and comedy. This is why Sam Raimi did so well with Evil
Mm,
Dead,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's the timing. It's the timing is so perfect in
There's a
comedy and
very, very
horror.
Evil Dead feel to this film as well, isn't
There
there? I got
is.
that vibe all the way through. Yeah.
Especially as a scene that me and Nick never really said happen, but it happens in the car. And it keeps going
Oh,
on and on and on
oh,
and Ariston. Yeah, that's
that scene, my goodness me. I mean, I'm a big horror fan. I consider
yeah,
myself to be a fairly not jaded horror fan, but
yeah,
fairly hardened horror fan. And I'm like, come on, with every new
yeah,
horror film, I'm like, come on, come at me and shock me. I'm like, oh, okay,
yeah,
that
yeah,
scene certainly did the job. That and several other scenes.
yeah. And I think Sam Raimi would be jealous of that scene.
Yeah.
Or Lee Cronin, I would say, with the last Evil Dead movie.
Mm, and The
With
Mummy
that the
recently.
Mummy. Yes, I,
Yeah.
I I recently saw that. It certainly is the Mummy Goes Evil Dead.
Mm,
That sort of thing. So overall, if you were to rate it, we gave it 4 stars each.
mm.
What about yourself?
Yeah, I think 4 stars. I think that it focuses a lot. It kind of bludgeons the audience. I wonder if there might have been a bit more room for a bit more nuance in it.
Yeah,
I mean, it does come at you like shouting pretty much all the way through, and I was pretty exhausted by the end of
yeah,
it, largely in a good way, but maybe there was room for a bit more, I dare I say it, subtlety.
yeah,
But then the more I think about it, like you identified it there with Michael Johnston's performance, like the fact that he comes at you at the start of the movie looking like your average beta male,
yeah,
completely unassuming.
yeah,
He's, harboring this crush on Indy Navarrete's character, but that seemingly benign quality that he has then curdles and is manifested in the form of this wish that he puts on her, this hex, basically. So the way it turns the nice guy trope inside out, I mean, I imagine many people in an audience, myself included, kind of look at ourselves thinking, right, we consider ourselves nice guys, and maybe we ought
yeah,
to like reconsider our relationship with that term a little bit. Maybe we
yeah,
ought to look at ourselves a bit more deeply, which is a
yeah.
disturbing thing in and of itself when a movie can get you to do that.
Yeah, it was definitely grounded. So the next one, this one's not actually been covered on the website. I don't, if you don't mind just saying a few what it's sort of about. There's not much to say about it. So Backrooms, if you like to just sort of basically explain what it's about and if you liked it or didn't like it.
Yeah, so this is directed by Kane Parsons, who adapts the feature film of the Backrooms mythology. And Parsons comes to this having already developed a series of YouTube Backroom shorts online, which I have subsequently gone in and watched. I mean, I wasn't really familiar with the whole Backrooms mythology until fairly recently, and I've gone back in, and it is like a rabbit hole of
Yeah,
this extraordinary sprawling mythology. And I think Kane Pixel's work is held up as like
yeah,
among the finest in this area. Like the YouTube shorts are really, really accomplished and really scary. So it's no wonder that at the age of 20, he's made a really accomplished feature film debut because he kind of had the grounding in the shorts. So it all kind of ties together and it all makes sense in terms of how proficient and talented a director he is. But you have Chiwetel Ejiofor as the recently separated furniture store owner who basically glitches or no clips through the basement of his furniture store into the back rooms, which is this endless cavernous liminal space of seemingly empty rooms with this sickly yellow lighting and yellow carpet and yellow walls. Of course, there's something in there with him, and Renate Reinsve, who is so brilliant in Sentimental Value, is his psychologist, and when he disappears, she no clips into the back rooms as well to go and find out what's happened to him. And so there's a mixture of like liminal horror and personal revelations that are kind of represented visually in like a metaphorical way. I mean, what I liked about the movie was that it it almost threatens to over explain itself at the end, which I think maybe brings it down a little bit, but it stops just short of telling us what the backrooms is. It allows us to bring our own meanings to like the
Yeah.
backrooms. Is it basically like this empty space which we fill with our subconscious in one way or another? That could be one way of looking at it. There's no definitive way of looking at it. Again, the mythology is far too complicated for there to be one particular definition, but it is a marvel of design. I mean, that they built, I think they built something like 33,000 square feet of sets,
Wow.
like physical sets, which is, I mean, it might even be bigger than that, but in which the actors and the crew actually got lost. It's because it was so big. So you really get that physical immersion. It's practical. It is more, it's interesting in comparison with Obsession. It's more of an abstract concept. I think it owes probably more to something like David Lynch than
Yeah.
Obsession does. Did you think that
Yeah, I
as
thought of
well?
that. It reminded me of, I went, as I said, I went to Salford in Manchester area for uni, but it was graphic design I did. But in my third year, I did film studies. And like any film studies that you do, you're always open up with Blue Velvet and the scene, the
Yeah.
opening scene. And that's what it reminded me of. This is us now under the dirt. This is what's waiting for a wee bit of Razorheads in there as well, you know.
Mm.
And I'll be honest, I'm going to put my hand up. I've only seen clips and trailers of Eraserhead. I haven't seen the film, so that's just off of me watching the trailers, you know, and the clips. I could see that in there. I would love. I was trying to figure out if the color usage of it was done for a reason, and I think somebody says it's something to do with the sort of work environment in America because you
Mm.
can see, and that sort of took me into the idea of, as you said, first of all, you're right about there's no any particular reason, you know, for the back rooms. But one of the reasons I sort of saw is a bit, and I got it off Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, how he just loves that job that he's done, and he thinks he's stuck in a loop, you know. He hates the advert he's trying to make, I mean, how so cheap it is.
Yeah, the pirate advert.
I
Yeah.
advert that
Yeah.
was funny,
Yeah.
and for that, and how he's all the things that he does, and he does on a regular basis, he just gets stressed out, and then he goes in the bar and gets a couple of drinks, you know, that type of thing. You know, that's all part of the loop, and he just cannot seem to get, and that's why he's at Renata Reinsve's psychologist, and as the film progresses, I don't think this is a spoiler. She's in a loop as well,
Mm.
but maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily the loop that you think she in, and that's a complete, and that sort of gives you the idea. There is another actor in this and character. Left it open for interpretation. So
Because they're clearly going to do more. I mean, this cost
yeah,
$10 million and it's taken in excess, I think, of 200 million already, which is amazing. Like Obsession, low
yeah,
budget horror with, so the profit margins are kind of easier to reconcile with
yeah,
when the budgets are lower. So, and there's been a lot written about how both of these movies being out at the same time and effectively syncing Star Wars within the same window. This is saying something about how Gen Z audiences and
yeah,
also Gen Z filmmakers like Curry Barker and Kane Parsons have really, at least temporarily, grabbed hold of the zeitgeist and are doing really exciting things with it. Because I think it's interesting. I read something about because Kane Parsons, I mean, like Curry Barker's 26, Kane Parsons is 20.
20.
Kane Parsons, I think there was an interview where he said, "Well, I basically grew up kind of post cinema. He grew up being more influenced by YouTube and online than he did by cinema,"
Yeah.
which I thought was an interesting observation. But his cinematic eye is amazing. I mean, you wouldn't think A that he was 20 and B this was his first feature film, would you? It's just, it's really good.
We
Um,
actually interview him. Erin's one of the other writers on the website. We
yeah.
actually have an interview if you go to peoplesmovies.com, and we actually interview Kane. She interviews Kane and talks about the sort of fan theories and what you just said are sort of growing up on the internet as well. I mean, since the size of televisions have changed and we went over to digital, I mean, what's that? 10 years roughly. How we view television is completely different. You know, obviously Netflix and Prime Video are here. YouTube and other social medias have all become the places to view. I always remember quite a few years ago, and I was talking to one of my nieces. Let's just say she's in her 40s, right? I'm older, but
Yeah.
she said she got all her news off of Facebook.
Mm,
That's somebody in their 40s, early
yeah.
40s. That shows you even a few years younger than me. This is how they're seeing things. But it's the old chestnut, like we mentioned, Disclosure Day. Don't believe everything you watch or see on television, on social media. Because it's open to interpretation again. It's open to you what you believe in, and that's probably why the world's probably a bit more chaotic because there's no true
Yeah.
direction.
But I think on an emotional level, the concept of the backrooms appeals to an audience. This is probably one of the in addition to the
Yes.
YouTube mythology, this is probably one of the reasons why it's done so well at the box office.
Yeah.
It's like Obsession. It's a very, very creepy and yet also very relatable idea. Like, what if there is this space constantly hanging around on the edges of our perception, ready to be stepped into at any moment. So, and
Yeah.
we can step into it and author it in our own way, which is basically what
Yeah.
people do on YouTube effectively. They fill it with their own mythology, their own subconscious, their own ideas. That's a really creepy idea, don't you think? Like the idea that it's just waiting for us,
Y-
just somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Sean, you wanted to sort of round up your final thoughts and if you want to give it a rating.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4. I think it's a really accomplished feature debut from Kane Parsons. Again, bearing in mind that he did have the grinding in the YouTube shorts. I think it did maybe threaten to overplay its hand in the final act, which I think dragged it down by maybe a
Yeah.
star or half a star. But then
Yeah.
it does leave it wide open. I mean, judging from the sheer cavernous expanse of YouTube videos and interlinked mythology, there's potential for this feature film series to go on for ages.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what they do with it.
Yeah, I'm 4 stars as well. This is not for everyone. If you're looking for a straightforward horror with an ending or creatures and monsters, well, there is certain extent in this as well, the monsters and that creatures. But maybe not the way you think, you might be thinking. This might not be for you, but it's the recreation of these. This is a visual triumph, you know what I mean? It's coming for
Mm,
a short film, some would even call memes as well. And it's just endless mazes of hallways and I think it's the harshness of things is probably why the colours that creates that sort of sense of dread and sort of institutional. Maybe go back to me with the working environment because certain working environments go with a certain style of furnishing and decoration as well, decor. I'm glad it's deliberately slow because it's sort of very methodical and you get a sense of that sort of keeping pace, and when you think something's going to happen, you can feel the pain and the struggle of the people we're seeing in the film. It's very atmospheric, non-stop in here, and it's just an amazing achievement, especially this young guy. Very claustrophobic film for a 20-year-old director. I mean, this guy, you would think right away this guy would just had help. I mean, he had like Oswald Perkins, James Wan, and Sean Levy were all his producers, but apparently not. He did it all himself. They were just
mm.
no there as advisory role. So there you have it, folks. That was 4 stars. So, folks, we're just going to continue with one more little sort of shortish film review, and it's Rosie. Rosie, would you like to? We'll chat about He-Man, and you just want to just a basic what it's about, and if you liked it or didn't like it.
Yeah, so obviously Masters of the Universe it's based on He-Man, which was around in the 80s when I was not around. So
I was.
I came from it I came from it from a pretty fresh perspective. I know it originated from the Mattel dolls, which became like a comic and then an animated series. And I knew a little bit about it before, but I'd learnt most about it from this upcoming, well, now out release. So you have Nicholas Galitzine, who plays Adam slash He-Man. He's a fairly new actor, I think. He's done a lot of streaming, a lot with Amazon, who also produce Masters of the Universe. And same with Camila Mendes as well. They're both kind of Amazon actors. I think they were calling each other like Queen and King of Amazon at one point.
Yeah,
Um, you have Jared Leto, who Skeletor, who unfortunately was a really good performance. I think people don't like to praise him much these
yeah,
days, but he was definitely a standout from this film. Unfortunately, I think it was a really good film. It's a popcorn movie to an extent. You know, my friends keep bullying me because I call it a fun time, and they said when I say fun, that means bad. And I
yeah,
don't think it was a bad film by any means. It was a film that you could have fun with. I think a lot of people were describing Mandalorian and Grogu as fun, and that wasn't as much of a fun film as this was. But it was something that really lent into its source material. Again, like I don't know a lot about the original cartoons, but I know some of the references. And this film was not afraid to be a little bit silly and have some fun. It was very comedic, whilst also having some really good action sequences. And I just thought it was a really enjoyable watch. By no means will I sit here and say it's a perfect film. I wouldn't put it on the same level as Disclosure Day when we are talking about that earlier. But it was a good time. It's about the same length as Disclosure Day, actually, and it feels a bit shorter in length to me because it's full of really fun like needle drops and the score as well as like Daniel Pemberton. He's absolutely brilliant. So I do think it was a really fun film, but unfortunately it has flopped at the box office. I think it's probably because it is a bit of a niche thing. Like I know a lot of people's parents in my age group have heard of like He-Man and like maybe get a bit excited about it. But and I know a lot of people wouldn't really go out of their way to go and see it if they've had no relation to the previous like, animated series or the comics or the toys. So I think that probably lent itself slightly to the decline in the box office. But I think also, unfortunately, it came out around the same time as Obsession and the Backrooms, which have been doing so phenomenally well. And it does show that people do really like original films as well. But yeah, I think it was a really fun film. I think the score really carried it. It was like such a like almost really exciting, thrilling score, very like retro sounding. And I thought that was a really brilliant part. There was some really well done fight scenes that almost were framed like comic book panels in a sense, like when someone went to punch someone, it would freeze in that kind of way. And I thought that was done really well. I think it could have been a little bit shorter. I think at the end of the day, it is a fun film. It's a film that is what it is. It's just what it does on the tin and really like created a fun time. I think it is a shame that it isn't doing so well in the box office at the cinemas. But I do wonder if it'll be one that when it goes to streaming, that people start to realize that it is better than they may have thought.
hmm As I slightly said earlier, I am of the age of I was a kid when this was out.
Mm,
I have actually I've seen the original film with Dolph
yes.
Lundgren at the cinema, so that gives you a clue how old I am. I'll say I think it came out in 1985. I think I was 10. Even bigger
Yeah.
clue how old I am. And it's my birthday next month again. That was camp. That was a canon movie. If you know the canon movies, you know they're cheating, cheerful, they're very canon. A lot of the Arrow Video films are canon movies. I remember, well, obviously, I put you through my accent, the part of the world I'm in, ITV's STV up here, and definitely during the summer, 9:20, the 9:25 spot was He-Man. That was when the cartoon came on. Other cartoons were on as well, like Samurai Pizza Cats, which I like better. That's probably why I love anime nowadays. Dennis, no, but the American Dennis, the one they made the live action movie for, with Walter Matthau. That sort of gives you an idea, the sort of era. I had a bit of an issue because obviously, and it sort of, folks, we have the People's Movies and obviously the podcast. We have a little chat room in the firm
Mm.
community. I think I nearly started a massive argument. Uh, Dolph Lundgren's a big guy, even when he's in his late 60s, early 70s now. He was a big guy, and Nicholas Gallatin, he's a smaller guy. He is pumped up, man, but he's maybe not as pumped up as Dov Lugan. But I think Dov Lugan was a bodybuilder. I think that's probably why I'm thinking, they're definitely going to get the use out of him because he's in Street Fighter as
Mm.
well, and he's playing John Rambo in the John Rambo Pico, so they're getting used to him being pumped up, there as well. Me being of that generation, do you think if anyone, you probably answered it earlier, would actually like this movie? Is it just a fan service type movie?
Yeah, I think it is like super. I think it has a lot of the references, and I think when you're like, I know with Marvel as well, when there's like a post-credit scene and it reveals something, and everyone's
Mm.
like, "Oh my God," because it's so exciting and it's something from your childhood. There's technically three credit scenes in this
Wow.
that are all, like really, really lean into I think the comics and the shows and reference characters. And I have a friend that's like really into it. And I didn't even know the character they're referencing, but I know other people have got really excited about it. And I know a bit about She-Ra as well.
Yeah.
Spoilers maybe, but there's slight nods to that character as well. And I think that's like it's like I think it's got everything that someone who would have liked the show back then would like. And it's funny you say about Nicholas because when he was first cast, I thought, God, like he's going to be super buff for all his roles now. But
Yeah.
he's managed to do that, gain the weight, do the thing. And I know it was a really grueling process. He's spoken about how hard it was to gain weight that rapidly. But he's managed to lose it. But then I thought if they do a sequel, he's got to do it all again.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
Exactly.
It is a lot, but I do think he was really good, and it's like it is really nice to see him. Like he will never be typecast. He's played so many different roles. I just think it's funny how he's got Red, White, Royal Blue Wedding, which is complete different opposite vibes. And he was saying he's going to be slightly buffer than he was in the first one in the sequel, just because of having like filming back to back with
Yeah.
everything. But I think like it's nice to see him like in the cinema and have like lead a role in the cinema. It's a shame it did flop in the box office, but I do think like he deserves credit where credit is due. He did a phenomenal job trying to get really into the shoes of that character.
Yeah, it sounds like that sequel's going to be like a Mills and Boon novel that some of the mums and grands may have read, where the guy's always shirtless and a bit he's buffed up. So, overall, what score would you give it? Rating?
I think I gave it a three or a three and a half because there's it's not perfect, but I'm quite a high rater anyway. So I know like other people probably would give it lower, but I had a good time with it. I didn't come out thinking, that was really bad. I thought
Yeah.
it was maybe lacking in a few elements, but it was a fun time. Like I know people hate to hear the word fun, but it's a film where you come, you know what you're getting yourself into. You watch some characters have a laugh, some good music, some good actors, and then you go home. It's one of those
Yeah.
things. It's just nice to go. I do think it should be seen in the cinema. It was a really fun experience, but
Yeah.
I think it will be one that people will watch at home as well.
Yeah, it's going to be on Prime Video with Amazon involved.
Yeah,
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 and obviously the score, Daniel Pemberton, he did Project Hail Mary as well. Or
yeah.
or is that?
He's and the drama as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I nicknamed
Yeah.
the Project Hail Mary Project Muppets. If you've seen it, you'll know what I mean. You'll know what I mean. The end scene.
I did see it. I really liked it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you want to know what my opinions on it, go back a couple of episodes of the Chronicle, and it is on there. So there you have it, folks. There's three reviews. We had Obsession and Backrooms, both 4 stars, and then we have it. Masters of the Universe, three and a half star. So there you have it, folks. That was your episode 59 of the Chronicle, the Disclosure Day, and Obsession. Backrooms and He-Man are all in your local cinemas. Please check your listings to find out what the times are. Rosie and Sean, thank you very much for joining us. Rosie, would you like to let the viewers, listeners know where they can find you online, where they can find some of your work on social media and online?
Yeah, so on everything, I'm pretty sure. It's just at Rosie Reviews with an X on the end. Keeping it nice and consistent.
Yep. And Sean?
Yeah, you can find me primarily on Instagram, at Sean Film Writer. That's Sean as in Sean Connery, SCAN. I always feel like I have to point that out because if my spelling my name. Yeah, you can find links out to all my work on there, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. If anyone fancies giving me a follow.
Yeah, I'm following you. I'm following you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yep, I'm under my own name, Paul. So for ourselves at the Chronicle and the People's Movies, Facebook at the People's Movie, Instagram at the People's Movie, you'll see a lot of we're very active on. We're also on X at the People's Movie. We're not as active on there. YouTube at the People's Movies.com, where you will find episodes of the Chronicle and Chronicle Take Two on there, and a lot of other interviews and trailers on there as well. You can also find the Chronicle on many of your popular download sites to get your favorite podcasts, like Apple, Podbean, which is the main one, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. Sometimes we will continue the talk at the Chronicle Take Two, so stay tuned on social media and at People's Movies for your future episodes. And do sign up for email newsletter. You find the link over at the website. That is where we'll update you on what we're doing at the website, the reviews, future episodes over there. You can also show you the support for the Chronicle and the People's Movies. You buy me a copy and PayPal. The links are on the website. Do share this podcast on social media with your friends and family. And if you're listening on one of those podcast websites, please do give us a rating. We are a small podcast, and also do share and rate it. It does help more people find the podcast. Once again, thank you very much, Rosie and Sean, for joining us, and for you. Until the next time, enjoy the movies.